Hey y'all, it's your girl, the Benji B. What you watching on TV? Well, today, actually last night, what I was watching on TV, it's not technically TV, it's YouTube, but I was casting into my TV, so I guess that's the TV. Anyway, I wanted to do a quick recap and review of a movie that I watched last night called Hollywood's Finest. And it was a documentary published by it was produced by the LA Times. And it was just, I guess, uploaded to YouTube probably about 2 weeks ago, but it took place in 2022. And so what it does is it profiles a young lady named MacKenzie, and she's homeless in LA and pregnant. So the subject matter of the movie itself is actually pretty serious, and it's heavy. You know what I'm saying? It's really heavy. And so I don't know if it's more of a recap, a review, or a commentary. I guess the recap is really pretty simple. MacKenzie, like I said, she's a young lady. She lives on the streets of Los Angeles, which we all know the homeless epidemic there is like disgusting. It's really bad. It's like really, really bad in LA. So she's living on the streets in LA. She's in a tent, and I think she's like with her boyfriend or something, and he's another person that's living out on the streets. They both have suffered from like drug habits, and so they are living on the streets. And it chronicles MacKenzie and kind of the things she went through and how long she's been homeless. And basically I think she said she ran away when she was like 11. So she's been on the streets, essentially she's been on the streets since she was 11 years old, going and coming. And so when they first start the documentary, it's not hard to be pretty sympathetic to her situation, because we all know that, you know, life can hit you in different ways. I personally have experienced homelessness as a mother, as a parent, myself in my own life. Not to this degree of suffrage. I think for me, stability is really important. And so just being unstable, it was a very, very trying time for me, going through that with a small kid. And I will say that I never actually lived on a street. I was always pretty blessed and, you know, had places to go, or where I could kind of, you know, go in between if it was like, you know, really good friends and, you know, people would help me financially. And if I was able to like maybe crash somewhere, I was always pretty blessed in that sense. So luckily, I'm not saying that to say like I'm better. But it touched me because of my own experience, I guess. I think anytime a documentary, anytime a movie, anything that you watch on TV, you know it's done well when it makes you think of your own life, right? Anything that allows me to go into a mode of introspection, I think that that's a good piece of cinema. You know, whether it's a documentary, whether it's fiction, whether it's, you know, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? So as I watched it, my heart really, really went out to her. And she was pregnant when the documentary starts. She ends up giving birth to a little girl. And it just kind of shows her struggle with like getting housing and just maintaining her stability. And so, like I said at the beginning, you're pretty sympathetic to her plight. It's like super sad. And, you know, she tells you about her experiences in her past and kind of what led her down that road. And then they kind of venture into the fact that she had given birth to 2 other children prior to this baby. And so I think, so maybe this is more of a commentary than a recap or review, right? I think what it made me really think about is addiction, and, you know, how many people suffer from addiction. I'm always really amazed at the different perspectives of addiction. And I will say addiction is one of those things, even if you've never been homeless, you know somebody that's addicted to something. Or, you know, most of us have family members, spouses, ex-spouses. This too is another personal experience that I have bumped into throughout my life with an ex-life partner who suffered from addiction. And it is a grip unlike any other grip. It is something that I think even in my own, so this, again, it's made me kind of reflect on that situation that I experienced personally. And I think what was really trying for us and for that time is that I am a person who really believes, I understand and I know that life happens to us. All of us at some point are going to stumble into an experience or, something that we don't have any control over. I'm aware of that. I've lived it, right? So I'm not pretentious in a sense where I just think, well, you have to do, I don't feel like life is like that. I think that you do have to maintain a certain level of control over your life. I don't know that I don't think it's a really positive service to offer people that are stuck in the throes of addiction. I don't know what good it does them to coddle them and hold their hands. It don't seem like it worked to me. That was one of the issues that I had as a homeless person. For me, it was the, one check away from being homeless. Literally, that's what I walked into, right? And I was always amazed at how unwilling the system was to assist a mother who was not on drugs, who was not a prostitute, who was not mentally deranged. I mean, I guess that's subjective, you know what I'm saying? If you know me a little bit, I might be a little crazy, but not in the sense to where I wasn't able to maintain a stable, a flow of just a regular life, right? For me, it had more to do with finances. It had more to do with societal structure as far as like the way credit is set up and all that. It was the whole thing. I might talk about that again one day if I decide to get like super personal. But none of the things that afflicted MacKenzie, I have a true experience with. And so I want to make sure I'm careful with how I discuss her situation, because it is one of them things you don't know unless you don't lived it. I will say though that my ex was addicted. And that was a major turning point in my relationship with that person. And I had decided very early on that I was not finna play that game with you. I think that, compassion is one thing. But I think when you're dealing with people that are complacent with where they are, and if you are a person that will condone those types of behaviors, you're not really just doing a disservice to yourself or putting yourself in an inconvenient spot. You're really not helping that person. And so as I watch the documentary and I'm just like in the throes of empathy and I'm feeling so sad for her and I'm just, oh my God, this is so terrible and LA got to be able to do something. And then they reveal that there are 2 other babies that she have birthed and ultimately lost to the system. And so I won't say that the pity, well, the sympathy didn't necessarily diminish in a way where I'm just like, oh, fuck you. Because clearly, even in that type of situation, that's somebody dealing with something that's super heavy. Anybody that would allow themselves to get into that type of situation, clearly they dealing with something. And they deserve some help for that. But they got to want the help, and they got to seek out the help, and they got to adhere to the help. There were a few points in the movie where I was just like, this is a train wreck, and this is not getting better. One of the points was she eventually was able to get a place, going through one of the programs, the many programs that they offer, which I will say also are probably not that useful. But she was able to get a place to stay with her daughter. And her mother came to visit her. The other significant point, too, was that her mother is homeless as well. But her mother seems a lot more stable. She does not appear to be a drug addict. There was no real mention of her being an addict. I think for her, this was a chosen way of life. And for the most part, she looked like she got a pretty good grip on it. She's pretty organized. Her little ways of doing things are efficient. She travels, she moves around. She's got everything she needs. She looks fairly clean. You know what I mean? So I think for her mom, it's working. Or maybe she's just been involved in the lifestyle so long to where she have developed systems that make, things run smooth for her. But I thought that was an interesting point. That her mother was homeless in the movie. Well, anyway, her mother comes to visit her, and they seem to have a level of love and respect for each other. Now, let's not forget MacKenzie ran away at 11, so it's more to that shit than meets the eye. They didn't dive too deeply into that, but that's a major red flag right there, right? But where I started to lose my initial compassion for MacKenzie in her situation is there's a point where she has her place and everything, and I think there was like a 6-month time frame that she had to do what she needs to do to get a job, which I'll say for somebody that hasn't been involved in the system for a while is a very short amount of time. I don't know that it's realistic to expect a person coming off the street to make any real progress in 6 months. That's kind of a short amount of time. But I digress on that. Anyway, these are the statutes in which you agreed to participate in this program, right? What was fascinating to me is that after the birth of the baby, she then decides that she's lonely, which, okay, but she actually had her baby down there. She would actually go back to where she would hang out with all of her friends that lived on the streets, that lived in the tents and stuff. And she would take this baby daughter with her, and some of her friends were down there, and some of these guys were playing with the baby and stuff. And it was all filmed very innocently. So I don't, nothing really went off as far as, I didn't have any red alarm bells ringing in my head based on what the footage showed us. But just the thought of, this environment, like, why would you take a new little girl down there? That showed me that she is not equipped to live this life, right? And she's not ready. And I knew that at that moment she was going to definitely lose this baby. So not her first baby, but this is going to be the third baby that she loses custody of. And then, of course, we go into all the sad stories and the lack of assistance and help and all those different things. And it just really made me think of my ex-partner and how I was charged to have more compassion and support. And most of the times when you're dealing with people that are addicts or people that are ex-addicts, they will approach things from that standpoint. Like, you have to have more compassion and love. What I would bring to the attention of these types of people is that, while you're begging for all this compassion and this forgiveness and, all these handouts and all this kind of stuff, you really should take into account the lives and the people that you affect while you busy serving whatever itch or crave it is that you have. I'm always amazed. I'm always amazed at what people are willing to give up to avoid facing reality. Reality is not always fun, and it's not cute, it's not pleasant, it's not comfortable, but reality is really your best friend. As long as you know what you're working with, you have an ability to change it. But the longer you stay in a cloud of dust, or you keep yourself in this place where everything is make-believe, that's so dangerous. And yet we lose so many people to that lifestyle, and there are many people that choose that lifestyle. And so I don't want to leave this commentary coming off as super judgy. I think that everybody on this planet deserves to live life the way they choose to. I don't see anything wrong with you. If you prefer living under bridges with, strange and dirty people, if you don't mind laying on concrete or begging for food, to me, that just seems to suck like a motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Excuse my French, but that really drags. I don't know that I would have a lot of fun doing that, right? So that's probably why you hear my undertone of judgment. There's an undertone of judgment, but it's not meant to judge in a way that says that it's wrong and you shouldn't do it and that my way of life is better for you than yours. I don't believe that. I think that if you want to live like that, I think that's fine. I think it's absolutely okay. You get to choose how you want to live. But I also think that you have to understand and you have to realize that there are other people that don't want to do that shit. And if you make that choice for yourself, you can't expect people to engage with you who don't want to live that life and have their children around you and have their children in those environments. You have to stop with this weird thing that it's okay for a child to exist in that type of environment. It's not all right. I do hope that there is some help for people that are stuck in addiction. Too many of us lose people to addiction, and it feels like such a waste. It feels like such a sad, unnecessary loss when that type of shit happens, but people choose what they want to do. And so you get to choose what you want to do. And if you want to live like that, then by all means, live like that. But please understand and know that just because people have boundaries for themselves and for their own lives, it don't mean they hate you. It don't mean that they are, judging you necessarily. I mean, maybe they are judging you. I feel like we have to judge to a certain extent because that's how we maintain control over our lives. We have to have our boundaries, and that will most of the time surface itself as judgment. It's cool. Who cares? What's the difference? It doesn't matter, right? But I actually looked online to see if I could get some updates from MacKenzie, because she was such a cute girl. She's gorgeous. She had a potential to be, she's musically talented. So I don't know if she would be a rock star, but she definitely have enough talent where she could easily develop herself a cult following if she developed like some social media accounts and was consistent with doing that. Like people would they would jam her, you know what I mean? And she just has so much potential, and it's just, she's smoking that shit up, It's super sad. It makes me think about my ex, and I hope that everything is all right with them. But I think this is a worthy watch. That's why I wanted to post a review about it, because I think this is something that people should watch. I think that people who have gone through this with family members, and you don't really have a true understanding of how they live their lives, it's kind of a good insight. I'm sure there's other documentaries out there that allow that, but this is a good insight as to what they day-to-day look like. It also will show you that, a lot of times we tell people, well, you can get help and call this number, and it really don't work like that. So when they're telling you that they're trying to get help and they can't get none, they're probably telling you the truth. They're probably telling you the truth. Funding is an issue, and then when funding's not an issue, well, funding is usually most of the time the issue. Because, these people that fund these programs, they got to have so much money, and then there's so many more people to service than there is money. And so, sometimes you get on these weird long wait lists and shit, and it's just a never-ending cycle. So I hope the young lady is doing well. This is called Hollywood's Finest. It's a story of pregnant mothers, homeless in Los Angeles. So check it out if you want to. I'm going to post a link to the movie. I watched it on YouTube, so I'll put the link to the movie in the description. So if you choose to watch it, you can. But yeah, it's a worthy watch. I'm glad I watched it. It left me pretty emotional. It's very depressing. If you are not in the mood to be sad, probably that it's not the good time to watch it when you don't want to be sad. If you want something upbeat and funny, and obviously, it's a pretty heavy watch, but it's worth it. So that's all I have to say about that. Yeah. It touched me. So I hope it'll touch you too. Anyway, it's your girl, the Binge and B. I'm going to find something else to watch on TV. I'm going to talk to y'all later.